Hello everyone, welcome to astrologynewsreport.com. Today is June 1st, 2014.
Presenting an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic astrology.
I'm Ron Berger.
And I'm David Anton Savage. Let's take a look at the week that was.
Last week was a big one in terms of changes to the leadership. This is all related to the planetary pattern of Venus conjunct Ketu. Venus is the planet of values. Ketu is a significator of idealism and change, as well as the connection to the past karma.
Whenever Ketu is involved, often the roots of whatever occurs can be found in history. Sometimes this manifests as nostalgia for the supposedly better times of the past.
Last Sunday, far-right parties throughout Europe posted strong gains in elections to the European Parliament. European voters in the 28 member countries got a chance to express their disenchantment over European Union policies, especially the economic austerity measures which have their roots in the financial collapse of 2008. The vote is shaking up the mainstream political parties across the continent.
Anti-EU or Eurosceptic parties won the biggest share of the vote in France, where a quarter of the votes were cast for the far-right National Front, as well as the UK, Greece, and Denmark.
Egyptians voted on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in an extended election, which, as expected, installed ex-Army General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as President of Egypt. Supporters are hoping another military strongman can end 3 years of turmoil, despite fears for democracy in the Arab world's most populous nation. Modern Egyptian history is dominated by ex-military men as president: Nasser, Sadat, Mubarak, and now al-Sisi, spanning nearly all of Egypt's past 6 decades.
Sounds like a return to the values of the past. That's Ketu with Venus. Yes, the Egyptians have had enough of their experiment with Islamist democracy and want to return to the relative stability of dictatorship. So much for the Arab Spring.
Dictatorship. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, last Sunday's elections results gave Petro Poroshenko a clear majority, making the chocolate tycoon of Ukraine the next president of that messed up country. Poroshenko will have his hands full putting down the rebellion in the eastern provinces. Meanwhile, major skirmishes between the separatists and the Ukrainian military left scores dead. As we have mentioned in past shows, the chart for modern Ukraine is not strong nor stable.
Yes, and last week, Venus conjunct Ketu. Venus is the planet of young females, romance and relationship, as well as the planet of values and guidance. The eclipse point Ketu is connected with past karma, as well as idealism, chaos, and dissolution. The issue of sexism and misogyny in American culture was brought front and center by last week's killings in Isla Vista, California.
Elliot Rodgers' violent act, along with his YouTube videos, website postings, and self-published manifesto, all contributed to spark a national conversation about a systemic cultural meme that is too frequently ignored by the mainstream media: the assumed birthright of men to be serviced by women.
The results of the planetary pattern were not confined to the USA. In India, there is an uproar over the gang rape and murder of 2 teenage girls. Making it worse, 2 of the participants were policemen.
Mercury is the planet of the media. Jupiter is the planet of truth, morals, and judgment. The media gave Edward Snowden a chance to come out of the shadows and to re-up on reasons for doing what he did via a major interview in Russia with NBC's Brian Williams.
And there's the Ketu Venus pattern showing up in this as well. Snowden argued for constitutional values as the basis for exposing government secrets. He invoked 9/11 and his own response to it by joining the Army and eventually joining the NSA. It was all about idealism, values, the past, and dissolution. He is still seen as a whistleblower by most Americans, and the U.S. government wants to try him as a spy.
And in the facts contaminated by beliefs area, or shall we say numbers combined with judges, as shown in the heavens by Mercury and Jupiter together in Gemini, we got a good example last week from the highest court of the land.
In their infinite wisdom, the Supremes handed down their judgment, declaring that Florida's rigid 70 points IQ score as the cutoff for determining leniency in capital punishment cases was unconstitutional based on the cruel and unusual punishment clause of the Eighth Amendment.
Translation: from now on, if you have an IQ that is higher than 70, you can still be declared an idiot and thereby escape being executed for killing somebody. Am I the only one who thinks there is something screwy with this?
And here's another example of Mercury, the planet of data and information, getting mixed up with Jupiter, the planet of laws and judges.
A couple of weeks ago, a top European court ruled that Google must take down links to information about a person if requested by that person. This has now been dubbed the right to be forgotten.
Last week, Google finally got set up to comply with the court's ruling, and now has a website where people can demand that links to online content about themselves be removed. On the first day that the site was set up to function, it received over 12,000 requests.
That sounds sort of like progress. Used to be, we were worried about not having any privacy anymore due to the internet and Google linking together all personal data. But now the law has determined that we do, in fact, have the right to keep personal information private.
Yeah, but before we get all too excited, note that this doesn't stop the collection of personal data. It just stops a for-profit company, namely Google, from linking to the data and making it easily accessible. And let's not forget, so far, the right to be forgotten only applies to those folks in Europe. No U.S. judge has ruled on this yet.
Well, I thought I could go back to being anonymous, but I guess not.
No. And so we conclude this week's review of the week. Be sure to click in with us next week.